today. And now the translation, if you're interested where the translation is from, it's from this page here. It's from the Военно-промышленный courier, the war industry courier, I suppose, or the military industry courier. And the text is about Indonesia. And really the geopolitical situation surrounding Indonesia and how it has changed over the last few decades. So I read through this first and just corrected what I considered to be mistakes or errors. But I did then look at the original text because I wanted to see, well, because the student gave me the original text. This is a translation. It's not a CPE writing or anything. So it's a very different type of marking. And he gave me at the bottom the link. And so I assume that he wanted me to have a look at the link because he knows full well that that a lot of that link I'll be able to read. So let's have a look at what he's at his translation. Indonesia, the ingenious country which goes its own way. And I really liked the translation here for what was essentially 4 words. Yes, and it wasn't easy to translate those 4 words in just 4 words. You had to use the ingenious country and then a relative clause which goes its own way. And I think that's a very good translation. And it shows you how, I mean, usually Russian language annoys me that it has so many syllables in different words. It seems to be so long compared to English. But here, this shows that Russian language can be very, very short sometimes, where in English we would have to use a number of words. Okay, so let's get going. Multi-vector Indonesia gradually becomes a significant player in geopolitics. The pandemic has become a catalyst for the processes. Notice I've got rid of this comma, I'm going to talk about it in a second. For the processes which have been shaking the world for, not during, the 30 years since the Soviet Union's collapse, and which lead, personally I prefer have led, and it's because you've got 2 relative clauses here, so let's get them parallel, which have been shaking the world, blah, 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 and which have led. If you've got 2 present perfect verbs, it sounds to me like it's more in parallel, that's why I've changed it. Well, I haven't changed it because it's not wrong to say which lead, but which have led is perhaps more parallel with have been shaking, and which have led to the world's global rearrangement or maybe restructuring. I could offer you that option as well, but that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, please remember that we use for plus period of time, never during. You can't say during 3 weeks. You can't say during 5 minutes. You can't say during 3 years. You can't say during and then period of time. You can say during the meeting, you can say during summer, you can say during the lesson, but do not say during 3 weeks or something like that. It will not be correct. Okay, let's see who's here. So good morning, Patricia. Good morning, preparation of pizza. Good morning, Mazarul. And good morning, Humpty Dumpty in the Soviet Union. Okay, so let's come back to this translation. So you should be able to see why I've changed for. That's a very common mistake, that, to use during instead of for, and I've corrected it many, many times in my career. So do be aware that it's for plus number plus weeks, months, years, never during. And you can use a the here, and it's just because you are defining which 30 years. So we could use a definite article. You don't have to, because we sometimes drop it, but for the 30 years since the Soviet Union's collapse. So let's carry on. The most spectacular example of these changes is China's breakthrough. Having implemented the One Belt, One Road project, China has gone far beyond its historical, I had to say that, oikumene. Now, this is a word, I had to look it up. It's a word that means the limits of the ancient Greek world. It's an ancient Greek word, and it means the limits of their world. In other words, what they considered to be Greece, what they considered to be their homeland. And so here, what it means is China has gone far beyond its historical homeland. I mean, where you would imagine that China, where the limits of China, where the borders of China, where you imagine them to be. And it's saying that China has gone far beyond these borders, far beyond its historical oikumene, I don't know how to pronounce it, guys. I've never seen that word in my life. It's the first time. And has strengthened not only its economic position, but also, now I recommend its military one. And it's because of parallel structure, guys. Its economic position, not only its X, but also its Y. And it sounds much better. And so that's why I recommend its rather than A. But there's nothing wrong with A. It just sounds nicer. It's all more parallel when you use its twice. So if you can get it parallel like that, do, is my advice. Not only its X, but also its Y. Okay, on the other hand, the USA, former hegemon, which has overestimated its abilities and influence after a victory in the Cold War, has ended up in deep crisis. I would probably just say in deep crisis, because we say we're in crisis rather than you can use crisis countably, and that's why this is not wrong. You can say this is a crisis, but we often say in crisis and use it uncountably. And so personally, I'd recommend getting rid of that A. And what about this part? We've got which has overestimated, and then we got has ended up. Now notice that this is a relative clause interrupting the main clause. The former hegemon has ended up in deep crisis. And I actually recommend using having overestimated rather than which has overestimated. I think it's shorter, it's sweeter, it's clearer. And I did have a look at the original text. So let's see what it says in the original text. Where are we? Okay, here it is. On the other hand, the former hegemon, USA, overestimated, having overestimated. The reason why I think it should be having overestimated is because of that v in the participle, in the Russian participle there. I think that makes it a past perfect participle. And I agree, you could say which has overestimated, but you could also say having overestimated its strength and influence, after victory in the Cold, its strength and influence on the planet after victory in the Cold War. So I actually recommend having overestimated its abilities and influence after a victory in the Cold War rather than which has overestimated. Okay, so having overestimated its abilities and influence has ended up in deep crisis, whose development we will witness. Now, we had here upcoming future. I changed that in the near future, but then I had a look at the text and I changed it again because it seems to me that the text is not saying that. So the development of which we, I assume, will observe for a long time. This has got to be for a long time. Dolga, yesho dolga, for a long time to come. And that's how I translated this, not for a long time to come. It seems to me that you change the meaning if you say in the upcoming future or in the near future, which doesn't mean for a long time. So I would actually change this for whose development we will witness for a long time to come. Now, not undoubtedly, it is absolutely ludicrous, not very ludicrous. Ludicrous is a strong adjective. Ridiculous, ludicrous. So we need absolutely ludicrous to disregard the USA, the present leader of the Anglo-Saxon world, controlling the world's main financial flows, and the redistribution of these flows is the fundamental task for emerging players on the international scene. Okay, all good. A little tiger of the Asia Pacific. It is appropriate to designate Indonesia as one of the above said players, and this player is in it for the long run. Now, this is an expression. If you are in something for the long run, it means that you are ready to wait over a long-term period for the advantages or for the benefits. And so maybe you invest in Bitcoin, and you are in it for the long run, meaning you are happy to wait with your Bitcoin for 10 years, and wait until it, skyrockets in value. And here, we're saying that Indonesia is in the game of geopolitics for the long run, meaning they're thinking long term, they're not thinking short term. And of course, this sounds very wise. Now, I did put a the in here. On one hand, we do drop this the in speech very often. It's true. And there's a message there that articles are very often dropped in speech. You ought to bear this in mind when you're thinking about articles, that quite often we actually drop them in speech. So good morning, Alia. Good morning, Salam Dawood. Good morning, Mary, and good morning, Aziza. So on the one hand, it's more formally correct, with that the in there rather than just on one hand. It is situated from the geographical point of view on the periphery of global events. But on the other hand, and notice you always put the in the other one, yeah? But on the other hand, focus, hold on, we've missed a the before here, sorry guys. The focus of the big geopolitical game, excuse me, I've got a cold still, guys. The focus of the big geopolitical game is shifting step by step to Asia. And the main event in this game is a confrontation between China and America. In short, now notice that all of this, I can see that he wasn't sure how to translate this. And it was actually nie naprasna, if I remember rightly. Let's have a look. Nie naprasna. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Aha, here we go. In one word, with one word, yeah, in one word. How has he translated that? In short, he's translated that. Yeah, in short, in one word, it's not in vain. That's how I usually translate this, nie naprasna. It's not in vain, or it's not for nothing. Yeah, nie zria. It's not for nothing. Yeah, so I think that works better. But I did like what you wrote here, what the student wrote here. It's not just for show, but that is slightly different from it was not in vain, or it was not for nothing. It was not mere rhetoric, that maybe, but I actually prefer these two that I've offered here. It was not in vain, it was not for nothing that the upcoming century was called Asian at the meeting of Deng Xiaoping and Rajiv Gandhi in 1988. And this century, of course, will take into account Indonesia, the fourth largest country by population. That's what I prefer. We normally say it like that. The fourth largest country by population. And more than 85% of this population are Muslim. The importance of the term periphery in the context of global politics gradually fades and soon will become obsolete. So let's have a close look at the Indonesian military economic potential and the country's prospective role in the big geopolitical game. Prospects refer to the future. Perspective refers to your view, your from where your view is. Yeah, your perspective on an event is from where your view is. And we talk about lines of perspective in art, yeah, where you have a vanishing point in the background and you have lines of perspective. But you might talk about everybody different people in different countries have different perspectives, of course. But please don't mix perspective up with prospective, which is more about the future. Yeah, prospective role is your role in the future, the country's future role or expected role in the big geopolitical game. Firstly, the former Dutch colony, according to the evaluation of experts, can turn into the world's sixth largest economy by 2030. For the time being, for now, I changed this meanwhile now because I don't think we say meanwhile now at all. And I also changed this to semicolon, because you've got main clauses on both sides here. And I've just remembered, I forgot to tell you why I took this comma out before the which, is because it's a defining relative clause, not a non-defining one. And I say that just because there are a few mistakes where the student has put in a comma with defining relative clauses, and it's not okay. So for the time being, for now, it can be designated as the little Asian tiger in comparison with the four Asian tigers, South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, and Hong Kong, frankly speaking. Now, I changed this quite a lot. It is better to call Indonesia the growing tiger rather than the little one or even stress-proof. This or even stress-proof, when you put it at the end here after the little one, it looks like the conjunction or is joining onto that little one, the little one or even stress-proof. And we don't want to say that. So I looked at the original text. Let's have a look. Where is it? Let's have a look. Where are we? Where are we? Okay, we're just above that 2008 bit. Yep. So let's have a look. It's this one, isn't it? Strictly speaking, frankly speaking, Indonesia. Okay. How has he translated that? Let's have a look. Okay, it is better to call Indonesia. I must admit, I've never heard it put like that. Stoid otnisti kutigram. Yeah, that's a new one on me, that particular expression. But let's have a look. I changed the end because look at how it's formed. Look at how the sentence is written. It's not so much a little tiger as a growing tiger, I would say, or even a stress-resistant one. And I changed it to stress-resistant because I thought stress-proof sounded a bit odd. So I changed this sentence to, it is better to call the Indonesian tiger not little, but rather growing or even stress-resistant. Because then you've got the growing or even stress-resistant together, and we want them together because the writer is saying it's not a little tiger, but it's a growing tiger or even a stress-resistant tiger. So it really ought to be in that order. Okay, for instance, during the crisis of 2008, what time are we on, guys? I don't like to go over 20 minutes, 15 minutes. Good morning, Jimmy Retima. We'll keep going with this, guys, because I've got quite a lot to do here. There are actually 5 pages on this translation. He keeps me busy, this student, but I enjoy doing it, and I do enjoy looking at the original text as well. So I'm glad he's given me the original Russian. So, for instance, during the crisis of 2008, according to the financial analyst Gleb Zubov, now I took out those commas because for me, that's a defining A positive. We're defining which financial analyst. And if it's a defining A positive, just like a defining relative clause or a defining participle phrase, we don't have commas, yeah, with defining stuff. So, to the financial analyst Gleb Zubov, Indonesia showed great endurance. And by the way, if we swap around those two nouns, then I certainly would have commas, yeah, to Gleb Zubov, comma, the financial analyst, comma, because then it's non-defining. Okay, having an economy mostly focused on the internal market, Indonesia during the crisis has been able to keep the growth of GDP at a level of more than 4%. A level, because you can get many different levels here, and that's why we say a level of more than 4%. Now, despite of, please never say this, guys. This is a really common mistake. It's in spite of, or it's despite. Despite a noun, despite the weather, despite the picnic, despite the money, despite the crisis. The country has managed to create new jobs and stop the outflow of capital abroad. I think has managed sounds much better. Oh, maybe not, actually, because we're talking about 2008. Sorry, I'll get rid of that. Sorry, I agree with Zhenya now. Sorry, if we're talking about 2008, then despite the crisis, the country managed to create new jobs and stop the outflow of capital abroad. The basis for these achievements was the behaviour of General Suharto. Okay, he's put activity in there. Shall we see what he's talking about? What's he mean? What does he mean? Let's have a look. I've got to find the right thing in. It's just before the paragraph before Jakarta prepares for a leap. There's Jakarta prepares for a leap. So here it is. Let's have a look at this. Yeah, let's have a look at that. The basis for these achievements was the behavior, the activity, the actions, maybe. I'm not sure. It's deyatilness that we're trying to translate there. But if anyone's got any suggestions, please write them on the chat. That would be interesting for us. So let's just carry on. I'm not actually sure. And of course, I'm really here to correct the English, but I still like looking at the original text. So he was quite a contradictory figure in terms of domestic policy. He was much akin to the notorious Chilean leader, Augusto Pinochet. Okay, but after all, this particular man could ensure political stability and economic growth for the country sheerly by investments of money. By sheer investments. I didn't like sheer investments. We say sheer luck. We say sheer, and I don't think it collocates sheer investments. And what was it in the original? Was it big investments or something like that? Let's have a look. Where is it? Okay. I can't see the investments of money. Where is it? Well, money from the export of oil and the development of agriculture, is that? Development of agriculture and education. Yeah, well, let's carry on anyway. You could get large investments of money, something like that. Large investments. No, large investments of money obtained from oil export in the development of agriculture and education. As the political analyst Alexander Zotin confirms, only in 1974, more than 5,000 elementary schools and thousands of village hospitals were built. Jakarta prepares for a leap. Okay, we'll carry on going in a few minutes, guys, because I'm going to have to stop there for the moment. And yeah, we've gone 20 minutes. So I'm going to stop there, but I will start in a few seconds. So please don't go away, and please come to my website if you want to see more lessons on these kind of topics.